I will say the most advanced cybersecurity is one in which it disconnects you from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't use it, it can't be infected.
Yeah, it's not going to get worse.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 469 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Back in the office.
Yeah.
So you didn't get caught up in any of the airline hustle and bustle last week, I'm assuming?
Oh, no, I had to leave my vacation early because I had COVID.
Oh, yeah, my wife has got that today.
Yeah, it's super contagious. I can't even, I had it once last April and I knew exactly the mistake I made. That's the only other time I had it, and I knew the mistake I made. This one I have no idea. It's that contagious.
Oh, wow.
And I generally do outside dining and all of these other things, cannot figure it out. So
there is no telling, especially when you're traveling because you're just touching everything.
Well, I was up there for several days with my brother and everything went well at the fam stuff and none of them have it. So, don't know.
Yeah. I was met with the news this morning. My wife looks at me and she goes, I got COVID.
Yeah.
I was like, great. I mean, we were around the grandkids yesterday and everything else. And so I'm like, well, go quarantine now and let's hope it doesn't spread. Yeah.
This spread so quickly. I didn't even know it was spreading. So who knows? But I monitor the wastewater, to know where it is. And
well, that's a good segue into our topic today. Speaking of things that spread a lot.
I know, right?
We're going to be talking about CrowdStrike's major outage, which, it's funny in ways that's not funny because it still harkens back to the thing that we say often, which is, what's your incident response plan when something happens? But at the same time, it's, the one thing that we experienced in the MSP industry is something that you and I talked about many times, which is MSPs are not structured to be able to handle all the clients they have all at once.
Right.
And,
and if you think that yours can, you need to rethink that.
Yeah. So, we were running around Friday, a little bit Saturday, and then I think we had a few stragglers come in today to get everything back up and running. But it was touch and go for quite a while. And a friend of mine said that he had 150 servers and 800 laptops that all had to have their BitLocker keys entered in order to get them back up and running. So it's
fun.
Yeah. So for some people, it was a lot of time being out, and I was not home during it, so I figured I would come back home to my computer being blue screen, but it wasn't. So apparently, I wasn't in the first batches of updates.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that issue. So I was thankful, and not all of our clients had that issue, but all of them have CrowdStrike. So I was thankful that it didn't hit everybody.
Lucky you.
In some ways. In some ways. I'll take what I can get at this point.
Well,
all right.
Let's do the normal routine. There you go.
All right. Yeah, we'll do that. And we'll speed it up a little bit because I know you don't feel good.
I do not.
All right. So we do want to say thank you to those who listen, to those who donate to the podcast. We appreciate it. And if you want to find out more about Donna or myself or other individual businesses, you can go to helpmewithhipaa.com to find out more.
Yes.
All right. Let's get to our 405D tip of the week because they've spit out a little bit of new stuff here lately and had a new 405D post that came out. And those are always great reading.
Mm-hmm. There's some good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
That first article, I forgot I wrote, but I did.
I was going to say, I mean, the author of that article does a fantastic job every time she writes something. So I'm sure it's great.
So check out the 405D post, volume 25, interesting XXV from July 2024. Do you know the risks, the urgent need for data security in healthcare AI? There you go.
Yeah.
I did write it, forgot I'd written it, saw it. Oh, yeah. And you can also, if you're interested in the data security concerns, Harnessing the Power of AI is a webinar series that we did real quick, put it together in June, and you can go to harnessing-ai.cardinhq.com or the link on the show notes at helpmewithhippa.com for this episode to learn more, but you can access the webinar recordings and the sample policies, procedures, and checklists that I cover in them. And Cardin Club members have free access to all of that stuff. So if you haven't gotten around to checking it out, get the link on the webpage. But it's more about AI and how to manage it and what we got to start doing.
Yeah. And I think OpenAI came out with another version while I was out last week. Like,
Yeah,
what's it,
a
4.0 mini? Yeah.
4.0 mini. Yeah, so a cheaper version of it so that you can get the paid version, not just the free version. But it's like a cheaper version of it. So
Yeah.
Not sure.
I tried to actually be completely disconnected last week. I was like, this is like a trial run.
how'd it go?
I failed overall, but it was better than previous attempts. I'll just say it that way.
Well, maybe that being disconnected is what worked out for your CrowdStrike crisis.
Well, the crisis happened regardless.
Yeah.
My machine was connected. I just wasn't. It was just a matter of, am I going to check my messages and emails and all that on my phone? So I tried to stay away from it. Told my team, if it needs me, call me. Otherwise, I'm trying not to pay attention, but it's hard. It's hard not to pay attention when you see things pop up, and it's especially on Friday when it's like my phone's going ding, 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 ding. I'm like, oh Lord, something's happening.
It's something big. Better look.
Yeah. My wife's like, do we need to cancel our plans for the day so you can stay and work? I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. I'm in Boston. Not going to be able to do a whole lot.
Well, the beauty of that event, it's not a beauty of that event, is it's another scenario where we just talked about be on the lookout for crap that happens that you need to make a plan for, that you can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned at the beginning, ain't much you can do. Just write it out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But let's hit on what happened. And this is the scary part is that, so CrowdStrike published it. And so on Friday at midnight at 12:09 Eastern time, as part of ongoing operations, they released a sensor configuration update to Windows systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it triggered a logic error resulting in a system crash and a BSOD.
Blue screen of death.
Yes. And the sensor configuration update that caused the crash was remediated by 1:27 a.m. So it's just shy of 1 hour and 28 minutes. Right?
Yeah.
And any system that got updated in that brief time that runs a Falcon sensor Windows 7.1 or above, that update, it would make them crash.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Boom, chicka, boom, boom. So, did it happen instantaneous? Like when the update ran and it loaded, it went down? Or did something else have to happen? Or did you even have to see one?
I mean, for all of our clients, it was a matter of them coming in to work and it was sitting there. So my guess is that it either caused a reboot or it just crashed the system. My thinking is it just crashed the system.
Like right away.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've seen the more recent blue screens of death, but they have a frowny face on them. So, we had people. Actually, I took a picture. I had to send it to you. I was in the airport, and all their displays had the blue screen of death on it.
Oh wow!
With one carrier. It wasn't all of them across all airlines, but this one carrier, all their big screens had the blue screen of death on it. So that's what I think happened. It was just one of those things where, it was a Windows file, and as soon as it hit it, it was just like, no, I'm done. Blue screen crash.
Well, I mean, it's CrowdStrike has been respected up until now.
Yeah.
So much so that Microsoft would let them get deeper down into the operating system.
Mm-hmm.
But don't want to know who that poor person is. Because this is the thing. That was a human error.
Mm-hmm.
A human did that somewhere.
Or didn't do that.
So it was interesting reading the timeline that was in one of the articles, and there's a ton of articles I included links to, but how first thing you saw, like right after that update, you started seeing 911 services in a couple of states. I think it was Alaska, Arizona, something. Anyway, 911 service. So emergency service outage. Immediately healthcare's impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so that was first. So that was happening right after midnight. Those systems are, going constantly. And then somewhere between 2 and 3, the FAA says Delta, American, United, Allegiant, I think even Spirit said everybody's grounded. That is not going to be a good day.
Mm-mm.
Period.
Yeah, because they're thinking this is a major cyber attack.
Well, yeah, I'm sure at first. Well, the good news is CrowdStrike already knew it wasn't. However, how they going to tell everybody, we just blew up all your stuff?
Yeah, they're still calling in all the attorneys.
We just blew everything up. There you go. And so right there in an hour and a half, it spread around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember when WannaCry? You remember that ransomware attack? And people are like, how is it spreading so fast?
Mm-hmm.
One computer tells another computer and all bets are off.
Yeah.
So the fact that it hit all the airlines, that tells you they all use CrowdStrike except for Southwest.
Yeah. Well, I think I read somewhere that 300 of the Fortune 500 companies use it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're still going to be using it next week. We'll find out. But I mean, it was public transit was down, trains and buses, systems going offline. National Security Council, they call them between 6 and 7. They're like, y'all know this is going on. They're like, yeah, we're on it. Doesn't look to be attack. Looks to be, oopsie.
Yeah.
My bad.
And the bad thing is, like, it's not like you can push out a corrected update.
Yeah, they're dead.
Yeah. I mean, most of these took somebody putting their hands on the system. Now, I did read that some people had luck doing numerous reboots, like 15 reboots, and it would finally come up. So I have seen articles where that was a thing. For us, we had to put hands on every single system to get it back up and running.
Wow. And I mean, it's a very deep rooted security tool. So it's not something that is, simple to get to. And that's, what put it in that scenario.
That's part of the problem is that in order for you to have that deep level of security and protection, you have to also have that deep level of risk.
Yeah. And it's definitely risk. And it's going to be interesting to see how CrowdStrike and Microsoft, because the CrowdStrike update caused Windows to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Should Windows have stopped it from happening by checking something before it did it? What could Windows do differently to prevent the human error possibility of an update that is? And it's a configuration. When they call it a configuration, now I don't, we use your CrowdStrike, you're monitoring our stuff, and thankfully didn't hit any of us. We don't use all Windows devices, so worked out for us. But do you understand what they mean when they say it was a configuration update, that it wasn't a software update? Because they say it's a sensor configuration update to Windows systems, not a software update. So I just wondered if you'd heard any details about what that difference could be.
No, we haven't. My thing is it could be something as simple as we're adding a new checkbox for this new thing or whatever. It's a configuration change of some sort. But I don't know. We haven't gotten any more information than the average public,
right?
Has gotten. So
yeah, if it goes out to, it's not like they can send it out to all of the vendors and it'll be kept quiet. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, we'll be quiet.
That's why it's the same message everywhere. But I thought it was interesting that one of the things that was in the areas were blood centers.
Mm.
So not only were hospitals and ASCs and, it was all over the place where, they're having to reschedule appointments. They're rescheduling non-emergency services, all kinds of things happening across healthcare, because they would use this because all the areas. So banking had the problem, flights had a problem, and healthcare had a problem. You've hit everything at that point.
Yeah.
The small businesses, they're all over the place, but you've basically impacted everybody to some level.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I hadn't even thought about blood centers were saying, okay, we can't ship these because we do them with FedEx flights. We're doing these. And so everything's getting delayed 12 to 24 hours because of that. And it's just like, you don't even see how big this stuff is. And thankfully, they were able to limit the scope, which that alone, we're talking about how broad it was. And that's when they limited the scope.
Yeah. But it's, I guess the question becomes, and to some degree, are we in a position now where we have to learn to accept a certain level of inconvenience when things like this happens, because we have to have security that is so robust these days?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you mentioned, will people continue to use CrowdStrike? I mean, what are your options? You can go to another one. Doesn't mean they won't have a similar issue.
Yeah.
You could stay with CrowdStrike, which chances are whatever problem happened, they're probably going to button it up. So it's probably you're better off staying. But this could happen to any of them. We've seen other things, whether it's RMM tools and all this other stuff, but it's all these different things that you have to have now that you didn't have to have a decade ago, maybe 2 decades ago. And so it comes with more risk. How many times have we said that?
Mm-hmm. Every time you add something, it's a new risk.
Yeah, your MSP is bringing more risk into your organization by trying to address the risk that you currently have.
Fingers crossed.
It is. It's like, like I talked to a prospect earlier today, and they're like, we don't have anything other than Microsoft Defender. And I'm thinking, you definitely don't have enough protection.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm going to bring all this protection in, but I'm still bringing risk because all my protections have risk too.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, is it worth the risk? I mean, I think so, but it is risk.
Mm-hmm.
So, what point do you just go, we have to take the risk of what that brings because the risk of not having it is far worse.
Well, here's the big difference. This was a failure in the application, configuration, whatever you want to call it. But once they fixed it, it was just a matter of getting the fix out.
Mm-hmm.
If it had been a cyber attack, it's a much broader issue. You've got people stealing data. You don't know what other bombs could have been left out there. You don't know what could have been, now you've got to figure it out.
Yeah. And we wouldn't have recovered this fast.
No. So the risk that this occurring is worth it for the fact that it prevents the bigger risk.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So we just have to keep, the eye on the prize here. Again, now it's ironic that they limited the scope, and according to Microsoft, it was 8.5 million Windows devices.
Mm-hmm.
That's less than 1% of the global total Microsoft says they have.
In that case, it was not even a blip on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
But it made major news.
major stuff. And then, of course, the bad guys jumped on board right away and started setting up, here's an update, sending them out with malware. Here's a website to here, if this will fix it. And I think one of the things that saved that was the machines were dead.
Yeah.
Right. It had to be somebody going to get it to solve a problem, and the machines were dead. That limited the ability of them to do that. And the people who fell for it, it was minimal because of that, I think.
Well, I will say the most advanced cybersecurity is one in which it disconnects you from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't use it, it can't be infected.
Yeah, it's not going to get worse.
Yeah.
So, but I did think it was interesting, and I'm sure that we're going to hear more about this. That the CEO of CrowdStrike, George Kurtz, was the CTO. I want to say CIO, not the CEO, but up there. I think it was the CTO of McAfee. And I think it was 2010 that they had a global update kind of bomb like this one.
Oh, wow.
And it's, well, everybody's like, who's going to get blamed? Well, let's see, what was the date? April 2010 that McAfee released an update to its software used by corporate customers. The update deleted a key Windows file, causing millions of computers around the world to crash and repeatedly reboot. Much like the CrowdStrike mistake, the McAfee problem required a manual fix. And the CTO was Kurtz. So it took several months. After that, he was magically gone. But he was one of the main guys in CrowdStrike, I think. But the big question is not necessarily something the CEO could do to cause this.
Right. Yeah.
But
he's not the one doing the updates.
Yeah. But if I was him, I'd feel pretty snake bit. I don't know about you. I'd be like,
Oh man. Wow. Well, fortunately, nobody uses McAfee anymore, so that won't happen.
I know.
But Microsoft apparently didn't learn from that one, so I don't know that they'll learn from this one either.
Mm-mm. And again, it goes back to the same thing: is why the computers don't do a better job of keeping these things from happening themselves. So we talk about how smart they are. There needs to be more tools that could prevent this. And that was the last bit here of what can we learn from this? going back to our Be on the Lookout or our Bolo episode. And that was just a few weeks ago. And here we have a perfect opportunity that, and an article in Bloomberg was that this shouldn't be normal. That this scale was unprecedented. Yes. But we don't need to just put a Band-Aid on it and say, well, hope it doesn't happen again. So, yeah.
Well, I agree it shouldn't be normal. I'll also say that I don't think it is normal yet.
Yeah.
We haven't got there just because it had, happened, even if you count the McAfee one, 14 years ago? Yeah. I mean, so twice in 14 years doesn't make it normal.
Yeah. Not this particular issue.
No.
But, we have had others. Where, we've had the attacks on the DNS servers. We've had, Amazon services go down. And so what this article was talking about, and it is true that most of the global infrastructure, almost all of it, rides on Microsoft, Amazon, and or Google.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same issue here. It's when there is a clear, better option for, fill in the blank technology, most people are going to buy that better option. I mean, you could be on some obscure platform for anything and you're less likely to get hit.
Yeah.
But you're also going to miss out on everything that comes with being on the obscure platform.
Well, and a lot of times the obscure platform is not that it could be better. And trust me, I've worked on great machines and great operating systems, that today everybody's like, oh, this is really cool. Other people were doing that years ago. Right. But if you suck at marketing and sales and you don't have investors that will help you get there, and a lot of these companies buy up companies that have a better widget, so you don't have an opportunity for that competition and those kind of things, it is a big issue here of what would happen if Microsoft 365 took a major hit and came down hard for even 12 hours. What would that do?
It'd be Microsoft 364.
Yeah. Bump. Okay, there you go. But you can imagine what that would do in the business, just business, period.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying is you have these major vendors who rise to the top like that, and most people use those types of services. I mean, if you ask me which email vendor should I use, I'm going to say Google or Microsoft.
Right.
And most MSPs are. They're not going to say use whatever, fill in the blank.
Yahoo.
Yahoo or years ago we would use Rackspace or Bluehost and whatever, and people still use those. I still run into those from time to time where they're using those third parties.
But aren't those running Microsoft Exchange still?
Some of them are just webmail interfaces. And so
what's the back end? That's the thing.
The back end. I don't know. I don't know because some of them. I'm trying to think of the one that was the open source one that was readily available, but I can't think of it now. But I used to run into it a lot, and it was the one that you could access it using Roundcube or one of these other ones,
Squirrel Mail or something like that.
Yeah, Squirrel Mail and all that. But the back end part of it. That would be like Exchange. I can't remember the name of it, but it was some kind of open source version of that. And so that's what a lot of those ran on.
But now trying to secure that in a scalable for the enterprise level would be insane. I mean, you would think that somebody's crazy for trying to do that because you're still going to need all those layers. I'm still going to need the scanning for the spam, the phishing, and it's like, who can afford all those layers? It's going to be cheaper, to just suck it up and go with the big guys is where you end up.
Yeah. But, speaking of open source, I saw a lot of people jumping on the, Linux will rise again bandwagon, which is it's so funny because being in IT for as long as I have been, it's a recurring theme every so often where, everybody just needs to go to Linux. Everybody needs to go to Linux, and people that are Linux people, they love it. And I have Linux things that I use, and there are certain distros of Linux that I like, but they won't take the place yet of Microsoft. Unfortunately, they just don't.
I mean, how are they ever gonna?
Yeah, and they come with their own issues, right? It's not that if you're running a distro of Linux, you're never going to have issues, or you're never going to have hacks or viruses or whatever. You will.
Oh, the bad thing, they're like, Apple, Linux, all of them never get a virus, never get malware. No. They all have risk.
Yeah. And it's, and the bad thing about it is it can often be even harder to secure because it is even more complex than dealing with Windows, for example, or I can't put the same level of security. Like I have this problem with Macs. We can't put the same level of security on Macs that we can on Windows. Now you could argue that it's because it's not needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a fair argument.
Different level of risk.
Yeah.
Not no risk, just a different kind of risk.
Right.
And there's a lot of if you get in and work in the terminal back-end version of Apple, you're still going to see a lot of the similarities with Linux. And, so there's pros and cons to everything. And that's what you have to spend time doing. And in this particular one, this gets back to, it's the supply chain. It's the vendor of your vendor who's doing this. So in your case, your clients may not have even known they were part of this CrowdStrike thing. Many people may not have until they saw the B-side.
Yeah. I made sure I told my team, I said, when you send out this email about what's going on, don't say our security, say CrowdStrike.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because I want to make sure that, when they see all these newscasts about CrowdStrike, they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put a label in this thing.
Well, yeah, that's what we should do is all these major corporations around the world trust these people. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Why wouldn't I? And that's not unreasonable to say. So anybody that, is looking at it from that perspective, you have to say this is one of the most trusted security organizations in the world. So, there's them and SentinelOne, and there's like three, like everything.
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, it is. Everything's threes, right? But shout out to all the MSPs out there, because it's not the first time. It's usually a Microsoft update, but it's not the first time.
Yeah.
You've walked into the office and your entire day, if not your entire week, has now been dictated by a third-party failure.
Yeah.
And do you think we get paid for any of that?
No.
You created a whole bunch of work that we have to do and take a whole bunch of blame for something we didn't do, and we get zero for it.
Yep. Hey, CrowdStrike, hook a brother up. David needs you.
Yeah. Send me a t-shirt or something.
Give me a month free. Give me a month free. That.
Right.
Something. But it is definitely a thing. And that's one of the things. So everyone should consider, what if suddenly all of my computers get a B-side? Okay. Don't have to care. It's not a cyber attack. They're just not going to work. Or if you rely, whatever your infrastructure, your collaboration tools for email and document management and storage, whatever those tools are, suddenly no one can get to them. And that stays that way for hours on end. Not just a few, not just overnight, but it's all day next Friday. So you got to figure out how you're going to operate that way. But then you got to know, like in your case, as you said, who's going to be the one that has to touch every one of those machines? Because if every one of them has to be touched, and with those, when they're dead like that, you can't not do that. I don't think there are any tools that would get around it other than the magic 15th reboot.
Yeah. I mean, we had to boot everything into safe mode. And most of them, we had to do it with somebody else on the phone because we couldn't get on site with everybody.
Yeah. Well, and who's going to be able to do that anymore?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
I just can't imagine anybody fully able to do that anymore, to go sit in one day, touch every machine that they manage, like physically touch every one of them.
Do you know how hard it is to get to safe mode when you're telling somebody when to press F8?
I tell them, I was like, hit power and then just start pounding on it.
That's the hardest part, man. If we can get past that part, the rest of it's easy.
Yeah. It is a thing that you should sit and think about. How would that happen? Okay, if you were fortunate enough to not experience this, call your IT folks and say, okay, we dodged this bullet. How would we handle it if it was us? What would we do if we didn't dodge the bullet? What can we learn from what happened to others so that we would know how we could do this? How could you go and touch every machine? What if you don't have someone that can manage the freaking F8? Because we both know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for us, it didn't affect us too much, but we did have a couple of employees that, this affected. Now, of course, they could get back up and running quickly, but it's like anything else. You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others.
So ironic with it being such a major airport issue. So, if you haven't taken the time to do this, go listen to the Bolo episode and then insert this situation into that discussion as yet another scenario that you should spend some time evaluating. Everything's down. You don't know why. And that's the thing that so many people, they'll like, so-and-so will just take care of it. Okay, but what if they don't know? What if they don't know? What if they can't?
Yeah. I mean, 2024 is going to be an interesting year in review. I mean, this has just been like one major IT something after another.
Well, I mean, the healthcare sector is barely limping along after the Change Healthcare issue. They have not recovered fully. I don't know what it will take to make some of these organizations whole. Others, we already have the ones who closed or filed bankruptcy. So thankfully, this doesn't seem to have exacerbated that, but it did impact them. It's just yet another thing. And we have to look at the situation in a realistic way. And I think that's something we've talked about many times is, you have got to sit down and assume, how can I operate when all of my technology fails?
Yeah. Because we've had, let's see, the AT&T breach, Move It, Ticketmaster, Dell, Bank of America. I mean, it has been a rough year.
Oh, and we're just getting pounded with this stuff now. And it's not going to get any better.
No.
Not anytime soon. I'm not seeing anything yet. I'm seeing it get way worse. This year is going to be brutal, and we're only starting the second half. So, I think that we've been miserable enough in this one.
That's right. All right, folks. Thanks for listening, and be sure to share this out to your favorite social media site. And hey, go rate us and give us a review. We appreciate those. And remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right. Protect your patience. Day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.